Yeah, what is going on, everybody? It is your host, Rob, back with another episode of From My Experience podcast. Please forgive my energy levels. I am doing a 16-week workout program, and I just finished working out maybe like an hour ago, and I'm still tired. But enough about me. How are you all doing? Are y'all doing okay? Are you doing all right? Are you taking mental health breaks? Are you taking care of yourself? Mentally, physically, and financially? How's the family? How's the friends? How's your business going? How's everything going? You know, I want to know how y'all are doing. So chime in the comments, chime in the group, FME_podcast on Instagram and on Fanbase, and From My Experience podcast on Facebook. Thank y'all for continuing to like, share, subscribe, and support. We got a few things we're going to get into today, man. And yeah, buckle up. Please buckle up. Shout out to Romo on the beat. Thank you, Romo, for not busting me over the head with fees on that. Make sure y'all all the music for the show. I discovered all those artists on Dusted Wax. So it's like I think they're a record label based somewhere across the world somewhere. I discovered these artists in like 2012, and I've always downloaded and just kept their music and their beats. So please make sure you support those artists. All the links to everyone who provides music for the show is in the description. All right, we're going to get into front page news. But before I get into front page news, I want to forewarn you. Really only have like one positive thing to talk about. The other two things are pretty disturbing. So I like to give you all a heads up before I talk about something. I don't want to trigger anyone or mess their day up. But I mean, the world is the world. And I will do a better job in the future of trying to balance, some of the more upfront headlines that everyone knows about and talks about that are typically negative with some more positive stories. But here we go. All right. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, I talked to y'all about the Amazon stock split that has already happened. If you have not bought any Amazon stock, make sure that if you have some extra coins, you throw some Amazon's way. Their stock as of July 4th, 2022 is at, hold on, give me a second. I got it. $109.65. All right, $109.65 a share. Well, guess what? Google's stock split is coming up. It is coming up on July 15th. They are doing a 20-to-1 split. So as of right now, Google is going for $2,174.75 a share. Divide that by 20, and that will be the new price by per share. No, I'm not going to do the math because I'm lazy. All right. Okay. All right, y'all. So this is the kind of morbid stuff. So in Akron, Ohio, a 25-year-old black man by the name of Jalen Walker suffered at least 60 wounds when police officers fatally shot him last week following a high-speed chase during which the man fired a gun out the driver's side window. That's what authorities said. This is according to CNN.com. Jalen Walker, so this is the part that's confusing. I gotta stop the music. So it says Jalen Walker was unarmed at the time he was killed, though a gun was recovered from his car after the shooting. Akron, Ohio Police Chief, I believe it's Stephen, it could be Stephen Milet, said at a news conference Sunday when police released large portions of body camera videos from 13 officers who were at the scene, prompting more questions about Walker's death on June 27th. So I'm just going to pray for that family, and I pray everything gets resolved the right way. That's a lot. That's excessive. 60 times, y'all. Jesus. Okay. I gotta reset the music. Lord have mercy. All right. Lastly, what me and two very special guests and friends on the show are going to talk about today. The Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, ending 50 years of federal abortions rights. So CNBC has a great little summary here that I just want to give y'all to set up the conversation that we're going to have. So the Supreme Court, in a 5-4 decision, overturned Roe v. Wade, the landmark ruling that established the constitutional right to abortion. Roe, since 1973, had permitted abortions during the first 2 trimesters of pregnancy in the United States. Almost half the states are expected to outlaw or severely restrict abortion as a result of the Supreme Court's decision on a Mississippi case known as Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization. So that is your front page news. Lord have mercy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we continue the conversation, I have 2 very special guests that will introduce themselves, and after they introduce themselves, I'm going to read a little bit of statistics to kind of give a little bit more context, and to, anyone out there with any theories, thoughts, or research, maybe this will give it some credence. Please hit us up and let us know if you have any further information to add to this conversation. But without further ado, ladies.
What's up from my experience podcast? I'm so happy to be back. My name is Jessica Vann. I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of South Carolina. My specialty is sex and relationships, especially helping moms to find their sexy in the messy of parenting. So, of course, this is a topic that impacts moms, and we'll get more into that, right? Because you're thinking, how does abortion impact moms? But I will tell you more as we get into the conversation.
Hey, y'all. It's your girl, Christian Jackson. I am the daddy issues expert, also a licensed professional counselor supervisor in South Carolina. And I support women who are in recovery from crappy relationships via daddy issues primarily. Doesn't mean I can't do anything else, but a lot of what I have going on with the women that I attract and I support and I serve is really because they haven't done the work to really pause and find themselves. And when you throw wrenches like what happened a couple of weeks ago with Roe v. Wade in the mix, there's a lot of questioning happening about identity, choice, voice. We're going to get into that. And so I can't wait to share with y'all what has been coming up for my clients the last couple of weeks in regards to relationships, especially that of the relationship with yourself. Hey, y'all.
Thank you, ladies, and thank you for joining me. So I'm going to read just a little bit of statistics for y'all. If you want to look at this yourself, go to cdc.gov and do your research like I did. So among the 49 reporting areas that provided data for abortions for 2019, a total of 629,898 abortions were reported. Of these abortions, where's the number I was looking at? A majority, I read this a couple times. A majority of these abortions, I believe it was somewhere around 56% of them, were women ages 20 to 29. Yeah, 56.9%. So, whew. And as far as ethnicity goes, I'm just really going to talk about black women and white women because their numbers are the ones that really, well, I'll talk about what's in front of me. Let me not do that. So this is the number of reported abortions by known race/ethnicity and reporting areas of occurrence in the United States in 2019. So again, there's 49 states that reported on this. So those These reports are based on them actually knowing the ethnicity. And it's not the total number. The total number reported based off of knowing the ethnicity was 345,929. So of that number, white women were at 115,486. Black women were at 132,878. Other, which I'm assuming that's anything other, or maybe Pacific Islanders, or 25,056, and Hispanic women were 72,509. And the reason I'm reading these numbers is because there are people out there who have theories about why this is happening, and you know, some people are for it and think it should be happening. I don't study statistics and numbers a lot, but I'm surprised that, well, I'm not gonna say surprised. That number of 629,898 does not seem like a lot to me based on how many people are in the world and in this country. But yeah. So there's that, ladies. I want to start. Well, I'll just start by saying this. I'm gonna give my personal views on abortion. It's short. It's sweet. It's not sweet. What the heck? It's short and concise. And I want to forewarn y'all, if you don't listen to the podcast or you haven't, I crack jokes, okay? I'm not going to make light of the situation because this is very serious and highly impactful. But you're going to hear jokes, okay? So I'm just forewarning you. But me personally, I personally don't believe in abortion unless there are circumstances surrounding it, like, you know, you're super young or your health is at risk, you know, like adverse circumstances. But if you are two consenting adults, y'all got y'all stuff together, y'all decide to have sex, and whoopsie doodle, somebody got pregnant, I'm like, meh. But at the end of the day, it is the woman's body and it is the woman's choice. If I ever get a woman, will win or if I get a woman pregnant and she, you know, doesn't know what she wants to do, I would at least love to be a part of the discussion, because I'm like, hey, I would want you to have the baby. However, if you decide that this isn't for you and you do not want to have a baby for whatever reason, I'm not going to be upset or mad or scorn you, because that is your body and that is your life, because you're the one who has to carry this child and give birth to this child. That is something I'm never going to experience, thank goodness. And I don't know what comes along with that. So, but those are just my thoughts. I don't think that anyone should be able to take that right away from women, regardless of their personal beliefs.
I agree 100%. I will say this. So people get confused when we say pro-choice, pro-life, right?
Uh-oh.
I am pro-life. However, I am also pro-choice. And what that means is that I am not pro-abortion, but I am pro people making decisions for their damn selves. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I will never tell someone that you cannot have Kraft macaroni and cheese because it fucking sucks, if that is the choice that they have chosen to make for themselves, right? I don't know what their needs are. I don't know what their budgets are. Who am I to say these things? So in this particular situation, having a child, like Rob, you said earlier, you know, unless you're super young is subjective. Okay. I had my first child at 27 years old. I was pregnant for the first time at 2021. Both of those are super young in my mind, right? Unfortunately, I miscarried my first child, and I had to have a DNC. This is a procedure very similar to abortion if that child had been alive. In fact, I really struggled with the idea of having a DNC, because I'm like, what if this child is still alive? I'm not going to be able to live with this. We were able to determine that there was no signs of life, and this was life-saving for me. In the case of abortion, a lot of times it is life-saving for that woman. There are a lot of cases. Our governor is an idiot, y'all. I'm in South Carolina. Our governor's an idiot. I used to work for him when he was attorney general. Thought he was a really cool guy. Psych, he switched it. But you know, he said, so they asked him about abortions, and he said, you know, if people weren't seeking abortions, we wouldn't have to have this law. Well, the mother who's 27 weeks pregnant and finds out that her child is having seizures in her body daily can feel every seizure this child has and knows that her child is suffering before they even draw their first oxygen. She's not seeking an abortion, she's seeking a solution. And when the doctors tell her there is none and that you will have to carry this baby until the baby either dies or until you decide, like, you go into labor spontaneously, what kind of choice is that? And it's a bunch of old men making these choices for women, men who will never know what it's like to be pregnant, to carry a life. I can tell you, as the mother of two, it is not something that we go into lightly. So my personal choice is, yes, I would love for everyone to choose life, but I understand I don't know everyone's situation. And so I am pro-choice, and this is devastating for me and a number of other women.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll add to that. I think as I was listening to you guys talk, I know my stance. I was just trying to make it succinct. And Christian Jackson is pro mind your damn business. Okay. I cannot, because I literally had a client tell me that she is baffled by the fact that a fetus has more of a right to her body than she does. And as I was preparing for, getting to meet y'all this week, I was kind of listening to what my clients were telling me and just other conversations I'm having with women, my own husband. And it's just that, I think, struck me the most, because I remember being pregnant with my second, who was lit from being in my body, and he is still the
From
same
conception.
way.
Okay?
From conception. That boy
Lord.
got all the energy. Okay, them second babies, they don't play. And I just remember it kind of had me in my head about my own experiences, about how different they were, just having been pregnant twice and delivering both of those babies, thankfully, by the grace of God. But it still was just like, I can't imagine. Every single pregnancy is different. Like, you cannot say what's going to happen, what could be life threatening. I remember my husband saying, when we were having our first baby 11, almost 12 years ago, my God. I said, Tony, if something goes wrong, save the baby. That's what I said. And my husband was like, no, I don't know this nigga. I'm saving you. You know what I'm saying? It was just like, it just made me think of that this week, because it made it, just like I think you were saying, Rob, and kind of alluding to, you would like to be part of that decision. And so Jessica talks a lot about this when she was talking about relationships and intimacy, about just before we engage or kind of call ourselves a thing or define our relationship, we just don't do a lot of talking about what we want to happen beforehand. And I think that if nothing else, out of this entire situation, a lot of people will be like, especially men, mainly because you will never be pregnant, and experience pregnancy the way we will. Let me say that, because I know that science is taking some leaps. Let me just go back there. But I think that when people make these assumptions that it doesn't affect me, I sit and I think about, how can you not say that this doesn't affect you in your daily life? Yeah. So I'm working with like my own clients, even with myself, as I make sense of this, trying to help people see how the big picture, the shootings, mass murders, and all those things, they do trigger and activate so many things in us. So we can't ignore the different nuanced implications that are here because of this decision. I mean, literally, probably the week before this happened, I was riding around with my mom. Well, she was at my house with us, and my husband has a house wired with like Apple. It does everything, like the lights and the TV and all the things. And she was like, girl, I remember when I was watching the Jetsons, and we couldn't imagine that all these things would happen when I'm telling Siri to do A, B, and C. And then a few days later, we're 50, 60 years back, because of this overturned decision. So it's just like, girl, what is it all for? What is life? Yeah. It just confuses the crap out of you.
I wonder what people are thinking when they do things like this for real. And we had a private text conversation because I'm like, I didn't do a deep dive, but I'm like, there's a hidden agenda about something that's going on, because I'm looking at now the numbers were like 28 million or something like that. I'd be like, okay, well, I can kind of see why y'all get like we aborting like left and right, but it's like. Again, in my opinion, in comparison to how many people are on this planet or in this country, that's a relatively small number. And then, like, we don't even know all the statistically, we don't even know who the majority is. I mean, the numbers I gave y'all are based on half of the total amount of known, so we don't know.
Right.
Also, just a forewarning: if you are an elected official who who is thinking about putting some of these laws in place or restrictions in place in your state now that this has been overturned, please know that as of the past elections, a higher share of women, 68.4%, than men, 65%, actually turned out to vote. Damn job. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
moving forward, because that's something I thought about when y'all were talking. I'm like, y'all don't know that women be the ones that put y'all in
women
office?
get shit done, and more specifically Black women, right? So I'm just gonna put it out here. I used to say I'm a conspiracy theorist until I started to actually look at these things, and I was like, no, like I am a truth seeker. Like I because some things just don't make sense. And so this is a situation.
Seeker.
this is a situation where people will say race doesn't matter. This isn't about race. But here's the thing: if we go back 50 years, if we go back to like women's rights movements and things like that, white women co-opted Black women's feminist movement, and they totally changed the structure of Black households, and that's a whole different thing. We can talk about that later. But the issue here, all the numbers Rob gave you guys, the numbers that matter are that white women get abortions at higher rate than Black women. And they will sell you this idea of like welfare queens and women who just want to have babies and use the government for assistance or use abortion as contraceptive, but that is not the true narrative. White women have abortions more often, and by the year 2045, white people are only going to make up 49% of the American population. 49%? Well, I am not a math genius by any stretch of the imagination, but that makes them the minority.
That means a minority.
And when white people say that they're not fearful of Black people or brown people, they're lying, because what they're fearful of is that we will do to them what they've done to us. When what, Christian? We just mind your damn business, right?
Mind your business, child.
When we become the majority, they're really lucky that Black people especially aren't seeking revenge. We're only, for some reason, just seeking equality and just seeking the right to be left the hell alone. So when you look at Roe v. Wade versus the gun laws they put into place, you have to ask yourself, you're pro-life, but you're also pro-allow people to own guns that kill a lot of people at one time. Automatic weapons you can't even go hunting with because there will be no deer left to take back with you. So it's very clear that it's not life that they're seeking to, well, it's not everybody's life that they're seeking to preserve. It is white lives, okay? And I couldn't find the lady's name that said thank you. You know, she thanked Trump for saving white life, but she meant what she said. She said what she said. She apologized, but she said what she said. And here's the thing, since Trump, people have been saying the inside thoughts, so in your head thoughts, they've been saying that out loud. And then they think that they can just walk it back. So I want to go back to saying why it matters for moms. 6 of 10 women who get abortions already have 1 or more children. So you create welfare queens when you tell a woman who has 4 children already that you have to have this 5th one. Or you tell someone who lives already stretched to, the hilt on their means that you have to have this 2nd child. Y'all, the jump from 1 child to 2 It does not mathematically seem like a lot, but that shit is a lot.
That's a lot.
Mhm.
It is a lot. And you be like, really? You need new clothes? For real? For real? You
What?
just can't keep rocking these two T's? Like,
Mhm.
so, I mean, the numbers do matter, and it is about race. It is about race at this point. They are trying to preserve whiteness.
Yes.
Yeah, you do. Oh, go ahead, Rob. I
I
have
just
things
wanted
too.
to back Jessica up. She's a U.S. representative by the name of Mary Miller. And
Okay,
she
thank you.
did say it's a victory for white life. But of course, her spokesperson came out and said, no, no, no. She just meant to say right to life. No, you said you meant what you said, and you said what you meant. White life. That's all I wanted to say. Go
You
ahead.
know,
Period. I want to also kind of add to the canvas, right, that Jessica is painting. It's there's a lot to be said about access to care
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
in the Black and Brown community. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so Jessica and I treat trauma survivors, people who are beneficiaries of Medicaid. I myself am. I'm a professional businesswoman and business owner, and I'm on that good select health plan because my husband
Okay.
lost a job at the time, and because of COVID, they're gonna rock my benefits until they decide to stop extending. I have no shame in that. But there's a lot of people who are beneficiaries of select health and Medicaid plans and MCOs, and that is made up by a certain population. We're gonna say just poor Black people. That's what people assume. I am not a
Yeah.
poor Black person, and I am on a Medicaid plan, but that's what people assume. If we go with that and we talk about the lack of education, the lack of access to care, whether that be medical, including mental health care, understanding what it even means to have access to a ride to school,
Mm-hmm.
and getting sex education so that you can learn what your choices are to protect yourself and all those things. It's a culmination of a lot of different factors that I think that we need to do better at talking about. Because I'm not going to lie, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to say this on record. I used to wonder when I first started my career, and I saw a lot of quote Medicaid clients. I saw a lot of people inner city, poor Black people. Okay, and I would have a mom. I had one mom that stands out to me, and sis had 8 children. And it blew my mind at the time as a young, fresh out of master's program, just got my degree, don't know what I'm doing therapist. And I just wondered, why did she just not get on birth control? That's
Mm-hmm.
that's what I wondered. And I'm not gonna lie, that was my ignorance and a lot of like lack of experience and education. And the more that I do the work and I connect and I stop telling myself lies, right, about like where I came from and what I was pretending not to know in my own self, then I understood, oh, she has a trauma story. Not all those kids were by her choice. She didn't know that she was pregnant because she was working and kind of ignored signs and didn't know what it meant to go get a yearly checkup with her OBGYN. Didn't know she was pregnant and doesn't know who the daddy is because, I mean, shit, by now she slept with probably 10, 12 other guys.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, there's a story behind everyone's entrance into this world, every pregnancy, everything. And there's like a system that we know is broken that cannot support our society and how we are populating the earth. And a lot of that is rooted in what we don't know, what we don't have access to. And that is sometimes correlated to trauma. But regardless, it's their business. And
Mm-hmm.
so in my profession, what we're trying to do is try to help you make sense of that business, give you what the options are, even if that is, I need to understand why I do make certain choices and what we call, quote, risky sexual behaviors. And that right now would be at least not wrapping it up for the sake of not contracting an STI. But if that's what you get down with your partner, y'all have talked about it, and you want to be open and have a conversation from both ends, then that's obviously safer. I'm not trying to tell you go use condoms and do it or you're a terrible person. This is for your health. But people who are having these conversations are so super judgy and not understanding that when they're watching porn, they don't wear condoms. Maybe that's where they learn how to have sex.
That part.
Yeah.
Period. Where we have to look at what's actually influencing the people, well, us, period. What's actually influencing us and where we're getting our messaging from. And so when we talk about touchy situations like this, we have to be open minded. And when you were talking, Jessica, it made me think about when you were talking about the gun laws versus Roe v. Wade and that being overturned. It made me think about like, can we have a gray area? And is that allowed? And I like to talk a lot about spectrums and how it's only fair to consider a gray area where I can be a Christian woman and use profane language and believe that abortion may be necessary if there is a medical necessity. I am pro-life. I am also pro-choice. What does that make me? Like,
Right.
like what does it matter? I'm pro mind your business. That means I don't think I could have an abortion. I wouldn't tell anybody to go ahead and, do that to your body, because that's frankly what it is. But it's also your life. And I am going to support your choice to be able to say, well, what do you think is going to happen? What are the implications? I want you to exercise that muscle of using critical thinking and understanding the implications of stuff. And so can we live in a gray area? Can you be out here, pastor this and that, and super Bible thumper therapist and this and that, and say all the things about how abortion doesn't make sense and God said, but then when it comes to you and people coming at you in the comments and you say, oh no, in that case it's okay. So let's have an open mind about this, is what my only argument is about this whole thing, because all sins are weighed the same. And Jessica, you and I have had this conversation.
And we don't know what these people are doing in the dark, right?
In
Because a
the
lot of
dark,
these senators
you don't know what
believe in abortion when their mistresses get pregnant. Okay.
Yes.
Period.
And the thing about it is that, so as Christian was talking, I feel like, there's a subsect. So then it's about race initially, because we got to protect whiteness. And then it's this poverty line, people who fall, my mom is super pro-Black, and I used to like really buck against that because I went to all white schools and I was like, we're all the same. And then I had a bad experience. And so then I started to become that way too. And she said, what white people don't understand. So whiteness is a construct, essentially. It did not exist before like late 1800s. And what they did is they sold this idea to poor white people that you're just like us. We care about you. But at the end of the day, rich white folk only care about rich white folk. But they will say, we need to protect these little white babies because a poor white person is better than being outnumbered by the Black and brown people. And then beneath that is then the religious beliefs. I have been baffled how over at least the last 6 years, there has been zero separation of church and state.
None.
Zero.
I don't think that ever existed.
And it's weird because these people came here to a land that was not theirs because they wanted religious freedom. And then they pushed, this is a Christian country. And I'm like, well, since when? Because it wasn't when you got here, and now you decided that it is. But they're pushing that idea and pushing that narrative onto people. And I just want to say, because Christian touched on this, as therapists, we don't take an oath like doctors, but the first two ethics that I remember are first, do no harm. If me pushing my beliefs of pro-life on any client, pregnant or otherwise, is going to do harm, that's not something that I'm legally supposed, I will ethically, ethics and legals are different, but ethically supposed to do. And then the second is that I am an advocate. I advocate for people's rights. And so I believe if you're like pro-life and you don't believe in abortions, then don't you go get an abortion. Then you don't do that. You can't infringe on somebody else's right to take care of their needs. And it has just been mind-blowing to me to see that our government does not advocate for us. They don't show up for us, and we elect them.
And let me just say this, Jessica, I'm going to throw this question out here. I just thought of it. What if, as therapists and counselors, etc., what if we are doing something unethical by treating a sex offender, right? So then those questions come up and you're like, well, they're people too. They have stories too, that kind of thing. So what comes to mind for me is, if I'm going to do no harm, that means that I get to choose what clients I serve. Because if I do see a sex offender, and I've been at jobs where I know that someone has come in with some kind of violent sexual offense or whatever it is. And I've said no, because I know I would be doing harm in the room with them because I'm not trained. I have really, frankly, no personal interest. I just don't. I know that I'd be doing harm because I would be, I somehow take that personally, as a human, as a survivor myself of child sexual assault, it's just a lot. Like, I would want to do that. So I had to put that out there because I feel like one of your listeners, Rob, because you have quite the eclectic, following, will say that. And I just want to be very clear that I choose my cases, whether I was working for somebody or not. That's why we have consultations and we talk about it, and I make the proper referrals, because there are people who are right for a certain population, whoever it is.
Fit, right.
Yeah.
I just want to make that clear.
I want to point something out too, and I don't know how I ended up like this, but according to Facebook statistics and my podcast statistics, my listenership is pretty balanced between men and women. I think I might have like 5 or 6% more women listeners than men listeners. So for the fellas out there that are listening, Jasmine Sullivan. Sorry, Jesus, it's been a day. Jasmine Sullivan said this at the BET Awards, and I want y'all to think about this. She said, "It's a hard time for us. I want to speak directly to the men. We need y'all. We need y'all to stand up for us, stand up with us. If you've ever benefited from a woman making one of the toughest decisions of her life, which is to terminate a pregnancy, you need to be standing. This is not just a woman issue. This is everybody's issue. We need your support more than ever." Very true statement. I personally know people who have benefited from women deciding to get abortions. Some of y'all, I love y'all. Not putting y'all on blast or shaming y'all. Some of y'all will be about 5 or 6 kids deep right now, maybe more, if it weren't for women going out and getting abortions for you, or because of you. Whatever the terminology is. And it's that right being taken away is scary, because I'm a teacher. I know that my students are having sex, and I couldn't imagine a 14 or 15-year-old or multiple 14 or 15-year-olds walking around trying to carry out a pregnancy and going through teen life, having to have a child because their state won't allow them to have an abortion because, they slipped up and made a mistake, whatever you want to call it, and they don't have the means or the funds to go elsewhere to get the abortion because maybe there's a less restrictive state or a state that's open to letting you get an abortion, but they don't have the means and resources to go get that. Like, could you just imagine what, like, this could have a huge impact. It's going to have a huge impact and shift in our society. And, those people talking about protecting white lives, are you really protecting someone by forcing them to do something that they're not ready for?
They have not released the ethnicity of this young girl, but there's a 10-year-old child in Ohio who was sexually assaulted and became pregnant. Ohio is forcing her to have this child. Now, I'm not sure of how far along she is. I'm not sure if the parents have the means to leave the state, but that's impactful for that young girl. Right? Because your body goes through so much in pregnancy. I can't even fathom having to be 10 and have a child. But let's go back to, Christian mentioned contraceptive earlier. So my second belief as to why Roe v. Wade was overturned is it makes it easier. It's a gateway to overturning other laws, right? Yep. So Uncle Thomas said, and I don't mean that in a friendly way, Uncle Tom, Clarence Thomas, he said that now we need to look at contraception. The fuck? Like, so you're not only are you gonna force me to carry a child if I become pregnant, but you're not even gonna give me an opportunity to not become pregnant, right? Like, are you trying to create like a sexless nation? What are you trying to do? Now, y'all, I'm holistic and all that good stuff, so I got some herb recommendations if you need them for contraceptive. However, condoms still work. Spermicide still works. And the fact that they won't even let sex educators in the school to talk about these things. I live in the Bible Belt. The sex education sucks in the South. It was pretty much like, if you stare at somebody too hard, you're going to get pregnant, stop being fast, like, whatever. So when we're talking about contraceptive, this is where people need to be thinking about their sons, teaching them how to protect themselves. Like, I fully expect my children to go and have sex, but they are well aware, even at their young age, that there is ways to protect yourself. People gave the vice president a lot of flack for saying this is about your sons, but I'm gonna play devil advocate here, and I'm not a fan of her, so it's not because she's a black woman. I'm just gonna play devil's advocate. I think she was trying to appeal to what these lawmakers will listen to. They care more about men than they do about women. So if I say this impacts your son, and your son is going to have less opportunity because hopefully he's not a deadbeat. Hopefully he's going to be there for his child. And that's going to be difficult not only for the mother, but for him as well. You know, maybe she was trying to appeal to that. But this is a gateway. This is not the last of these laws that they're going to be looking to repeal. And senators are making it clear because they're saying these are the laws that we want to look at. And we'll get into that a little bit later if y'all want to get into that.
I'm scared.
Oh,
Because
You should
so
be.
nerve-wracking.
you're right. And thinking back to my profession of education, I really wish more health and sex ed, like a person dedicated to that, like a literally a sex ed teacher, a health teacher. These kids need it. I don't know how
And
dense.
an actual curriculum.
Yes, like I don't know, and I don't know high school, but I know in middle school they have a curriculum for that, and we're supposed to do it. Me personally, I'm not comfortable doing it, only because y'all are just giving me basically, hey, here's a template with some information. I was like, I'd rather have a formal training or formal education on it so I know what I'm talking about, because these kids do identify as different things and they have different pronouns and stuff like that. And I don't 100% understand it, and I don't want to offend anyone or make them feel a certain type of way. So I'd rather someone where that's their lane and they're dedicated to doing that and they really know the information, have the conversation with these kids, because these kids are going to have questions. And you can just tell that there's like, I'm thinking back to your message about the age limit message you had, Jessica, because these people are super disconnected. I don't think people really understand and realize how much information that these kids have access to and how much they're exposed to, and there's nobody there to help them filter through this stuff, like what's fact, what's fiction, what's dangerous, what's okay. And you're asking me, who teaches about 100 of them a day, to try to implement this on top of everything else I already have to do in the classroom and outside the classroom. I just think it's ineffective, and more conversations around that need to be had so that, you know, we can all conduct ourselves better when it comes to, you know, our sexual exploration and just being more responsible. There's a lot of stuff I did not know about sex, even through college. I remember sex ed in high school, like one or two teachers. But other than that, you know, I kind of just had to go off of what people told me. My dad gave me a pretty good sex talk, but it would have been helpful to have more formal education coming up. And the same thing with politics. We got to get more involved. We have to start learning. We have to start doing more research on these politicians and see I mean, you can lie, but knowing where people's views align instead of just voting for a party. Oh, they're Democrat, I'm going to vote for them. Oh, they're Republican. Well, what do they believe in? And do they believe in what you believe in? And are they gonna protect you? Are they gonna uphold what's already in place, or are they trying to knock it down and get rid of it? And, you know, now that I feel old now, that now I see why my parents, like, growing up, watched the news and watched CNN and complained about the government and stuff, because they coming out here chopping us in the damn throat. And it's like, it impacts you as a kid, but you don't understand it. But as an adult, it impacts you even more, because now you either want to start a family or you have a family, and it shifts everything. And then you have to think about your life and how you're going to conduct yourselves with these laws and things that they put in place. And then you have to think about your child and educating your child and protecting your child against the laws that are supposed to be protecting you. It's crazy.
This whole like cycle of a mess. I happen to be one of those people who avoid the news, and Jessica tells me all the time, got to be informed, Christian, get a life, grow up, because and I agree with that assessment, and I think a lot of it is fear. Like if like the fear of knowledge, if I know too much, like
Mhm.
I'm afraid personally that I will fall into this even more fear and like a more of a helicopter parent, and I don't want anxiety to rule me. And I also have been watching a lot of scammer documentaries and a lot of TV shows on Netflix, because I love those kind of shows. But I literally just finished watching something called The Anatomy of a Scandal. Netflix showed it to me. It's really good. Okay. And it's like a little mini series. And it was, you know, the British government, but still, just all the stuff that happens as the parliament moves. Like every people in power, unfortunately, have like this record of scandal and putting themselves first and making the money, and it doesn't matter. And you watch all these things about how the government is just trash. And so I also feel like, what's the point? Like, what do y'all say to that?
I will say, you know, for those of you who've not figured it out yet, Christian and I are best friends. Okay. So I will say that there's also this element of protecting yourself mentally. Okay. So I totally get that too. Do what you need to do to protect yourself, because you probably got a conspiracy theorist friend who will update you whether you want to know or not. Okay. But this bigger issue, so the Roe versus Wade thing, I want to mention this too. There's mental health impacts for everyone, whether they are pro-life or pro-choice. Because I think for me, the realization that other laws can be rolled back, like, because these are things that I just always thought I would have. And so Uncle Tom wants to get rid of contraception. There's another senator, John somebody, I don't know, the name don't matter, but he was like, well, let's start looking at Plessy versus Ferguson. This is the separate but equal law, right? So that's not a place we want to go back to. And then Brown versus Education, which desegregated schools. Now, I have my own feelings about that. I'm not necessarily 100% upset by that, but there's a lot of people who their worlds are going to be dramatically changed if we repeal those types of things, right? And being overly informed can have an impact. I have to tell clients at least 3-4 times a week, I'm telling somebody, limit your social media intake. Stop watching the news. Set a timer. You can only have 45 minutes of news, and then you need to go outside. Because I definitely went through a stage where I was like, I want to be plugged back in, put me back in the matrix. I don't want to know anything because this is a scary time. But we have to arm ourselves so that we can arm our children, because we probably will not see a lot of the changes. But our children have to know that they can stand up and they can speak out and have a voice, and that there's a cost to that. Absolutely. Because there's a lot of people on the front lines of this issue, a lot of people on the front lines of, sadly, this issue where the young man was shot 60 times. Like, let's talk about excessive force rules and regulations and law enforcement. And those people are paying the cost. Like, they are the people who are really making the big changes. And so we need to know enough so that we can back them. Because I'm not gonna lie to you, you're not gonna catch me at a protest. I gotta fear crowds. I'm not gonna be there. But I will do what I can. Hey, when you need to bring water, need me to, you know, arm you with what's going on the local news, because they tell you everything they're gonna do. So I'll let you know where the cops at. Those types of things. But I think this whole issue is really scary to me. And Rob, you mentioned your job as an educator. I used to work for DSS in foster care. I know what child abuse looks like when a parent doesn't want a kid. So there are already people who've had children who didn't have access to abortion services, and those kids are not well taken care of. And so people are saying, well, there's always foster care, there's always adoption. DSS fucking sucks. It's another broken system, and they lose children. There's a documentary on Netflix about a young boy named Gabriel, in California. The system failed this child, and he ended up dead. And this is what you want kids to go to? They don't have parents who love them because the parents were forced to have a child. You put them into a system, and they go foster care to foster care of people who abuse them.
And I have treated those people.
So give us the solution.
Like,
Right.
girl, those people meaning y'all.
Yeah.
Okay. People who have been in the foster care system have gone from home to home to home. There's already an identity issue. Who am I? Who do I belong to? There's going to be a self-worth issue. And I've heard
Absolutely.
horrific stories. I work with DSS in a different way on the assessment side for those parents who just wanted DSS out of their hair for sure, but didn't necessarily say, oh, I want my kids back because I love them. Because, and frankly, for some of them, it was a break, right? They didn't have to feed the kids, all that kind of thing. So I've seen it on both sides in that way too. And Jessica, I know you've probably treated these clients too who have just been shuffled around. And this is where we want to send these kids. Horrific trauma stories, disgusting abuse.
So all these laws and no money going into healthcare, no money going into mental health, especially. And I'll tell you, there's so many people who make laws who believe that mental health care is a luxury. It is not a luxury. And the fact that insurance companies won't even work with us to make sure we have a livable rate of wage so that we can take care of these people and then take care of ourselves, it's ridiculous. It's scary. And so Roe versus Wade just causes a spiral, like a tsunami of people who are not going to be well adjusted, I would imagine. And I mean, maybe they're going to prove me wrong, which I hope they do. But you're saying that people who go and shoot up schools, oh, it's a mental health issue. But you're not tending to mental health, and then you're making people have babies that they don't want, who are going to maybe abuse these children. Maybe they'll have wonderful lives. And then you create this weird cycle of like mental health issues.
Yes, it's not even like a nice circular cycle. It's this ridiculous like labyrinth of a mess. You know what I'm saying? It's disgusting. And it grinds my gears as someone who is relatively mentally stable. I say relatively because I'll be having my moments, okay? But I'm supposed to come off birth control next year.
Yeah.
Because I have the Mirena. I'm on the last year of my Mirena. And 2023, I'm out because I'm tired of like altering my body, period. So I don't have a period because that's been kind of nice. But now I'm like, well, Lord, do I need to do another cycle? Because if something go down, like what we gonna do? I mean, the goal for me would be to have the baby. I secretly want another child, but my husband's telling me no. But there's just this whole thing about like, regardless of what I would do, I just would like to not have to worry, like add that to the plate of things that I have to worry about, quote unquote. And then I mean, that's been something that my client who is like, one of them is newly married. They're trying to have a baby and she may have health problems because of that, just because of what I know about her history. And then what goes on there, just the fear that she has. And on top of this already like interesting decision of planning, because I mean, for those of you who plan families, that's some real adult kind of things. Mine was a whole surprise, but she's planning the family with her husband, and that just adds a whole different layer. Like, what are you gonna do? It's mind blowing, just the domino effect of what this does.
What's funny? As I'm listening to y'all and I'm looking at articles and stuff like that, and I go back to what Jessica said about this age thing. These trauma cycles of being stuck in these old sayings and the way my daddy did it and back in the day and blah, blah, blah. It is not back in the day. We got different shit we dealing with. Stuff that has never been seen before. Stuff that has never been dealt with before. And the amount of pressure that people are under is absolutely ridiculous. And we're just told, fight through it. Push through. You got this. Take some time to yourself. Win. Like, it's probably the most expensive it has ever been to just live here in this country. Just came out of a pandemic. I mean, the government, Jesus Christ, we survived Trump, thank God. Like, so much crazy shit has happened. And when y'all talk about mental health, I'm looking at how many countries are signing on for 4-day work weeks for their employees. Like, y'all are... We're like,
oh my God, yes.
Over
the world, the U.S. is out of fucking control. Okay, people, like let's just be honest. Okay, what we know is that the U.S. is the least productive industrial country, but we work the most. We work the most, and the most successful or productive industrial countries. Those are countries that value naps, that value like paid
Girl,
maternity
a
leave.
siesta.
That
Yes.
come through siesta
A
2 hours,
siesta.
okay? Get you something to eat and then take a nap and bring your ass back and be refreshed, okay? So like the US is out of control. And what I just Googled, the average age of a Congress member is 57.6. And so these people have only had 7 years of, Roe v. Wade, like it came about for them. And then 62.9 in the Senate. When Trump said, make America great again, okay, we all knew as people of color that was a whistle, like that was a dog whistle, right?
Yes.
But it was maybe great for them. There's never been a time in American history where it's been great for people of color, but maybe that was a heyday for white people.
It's relative,
and so
right?
now
It's all relative.
It's all relative. And so not only do we need, and so the age thing Rob is referring to, I'm like, yo, you got to be 35 to be president, at least 35. But they should cap that at like 50 or 60, right? Like you can't be 80 some odd years old and trying to run for president. Old Joe falling off of bikes and shit. Like we're not 100% sure if he's going through stages of early dementia. We need fresh blood, and we need people who represent the makeup of this country. Because yes, things are changing. Look, we just had Pride. I am a proud member of the Alphabet Gang. However, I don't know all the terminology. Okay, my son was like, "Well, Mama, what's the QIA plus?" I was like, "Well, questioning, intersex, asexual, but then there's another A. I can't get all the pronouns. There's another A. Oh, I didn't even Google it because I was like, it'll change tomorrow." So
yeah,
we need people who like kind of have their pulse on what's happening. Like AOC is trying to hold it down for us, but ain't nobody listening to her. Why? Because she's a young Latinx young lady and she's putting out all these gems and they're just letting it go over their heads. I say get rid of all of them. Pack the court. We need more Supreme Court justices, and then just get rid of everybody else and have another election. Figure it out.
Figure it out.
And going back to what I said earlier about poor white people, they don't even realize they're voting against their own interests.
That part.
They don't even realize that.
Dave Chappelle tried to tell them.
Hey, listen, why? Because he your brother. You know what I'm saying?
He tried to tell y'all, but
you're working against yourself at this point.
We need a shift and we need a change for real, man. Like it's nuts. And part of what you said, we're like that in this country because we glamorize everything. Like it's like a fight to have the most of everything. We need 15, 20, 30 of every damn thing, and we don't need it. We don't need it. We don't need all these big numbers and all these, like, we don't need all this stuff. And you're working people to the bone. That is why y'all can't keep employees. You're burning them out. They're miserable. Think about how good and refreshed you are after a 3-day weekend or a vacation, or when you get enough sleep and you're eating right and you actually enjoy what you're doing every day. That makes a whole hell of a lot of difference. I can tell you from experience as a teacher, when I have 3-day weekends or coming off a vacation, I'm refreshed and ready to go, and I can go full throttle for a good bit, maybe like 2-3 months, 2.5 months, and I'm like, all right, I need to take a day or something like that. Like just that extra day off, just to even spend time with your family, talk to your kids. There's just so many just basic life necessity things that you could get done with an extra day. I think it would be it'd have a huge positive impact on things. And yes, companies, y'all gonna have to adjust your quotas, adjust your numbers. I'm sorry if you're super duper millionaire, but if you're super duper millionaire, you're probably straight unless you're just spending your money all crazy. But it's like, really, like if everybody really gets on the same page with this thing, we could be healthier. Period.
Could be okay. And it's instead of the alternative, which is, I'm super anxious about like the power that I'm giving the person who signs my check, which is what I did my last job. When I got fired at my last job, I said never again, because I have never been fired for something so unfair, being bullied out of that job, and have them just replace me the next day and not even care for the clients that were left. Y'all don't let me get on that soapbox. But you worry about who has power and control over you. And I think that's another theme that we need to make very clear that's coming out of this overturn of Roe v. Wade, and why people say, why does it matter that George Floyd was executed on TV? What does it matter to you? You don't even know him. Like, what does that mean that such and such happened, 9/11 happened? That's not even your business, right? What is my business, if you want to make it about you, I am triggered because it's bringing up something that I have experienced. So for all the people who don't understand how trauma works, okay, those triggers are sneaky and they are plentiful, and they're living in your body. Your body remembers what was happening the one time you was in that car accident, when you watched 9/11, the sense of sight. You remember where you were. Everything is stored. And we are super sensitive nowadays, especially nowadays, because we are exposed to a lot at one time. So if you are pro-life and you don't understand why people are so upset that this was overturned, please note there are implications that have layers and are likely linked to something that you have experienced, maybe not to that degree, but it reminds you of the time that you were raped, when you didn't have the choice to say no, because maybe you thought that you would get hurt even worse if you said no, or if you set up a boundary, because people don't know that consent is ongoing. Even if I give you a kiss and we getting into it, and if I say no any at that point, that means no. Anything less than a yes is no, because you don't understand that that was an ongoing agreement that I could break at any time. It is triggering that for me. It's triggering the fact that I lost this job at no point of my own. And now I've lost the right to choose at no point of my own. Like, you have to make those connections and make it personal for you. And so if you are triggered out there because of it, and you're not really sure why anything in the news really upsets you, call up whatever it is that you are pretending not to know, the thing you've been ignoring, because likely is an experience that does matter to you directly and has very strongly impacted you at one point. That's why this is important, among all the other things. But you and your body is trying to tell you, hey sis, hey bruh, something's happening. I need to protect myself. That's why this is so big. And that is why Jessica and I will never be out of mental health work, because when COVID happened, who phones was blowing up? Me and Jess. Because people had to sit with themselves, sit with their families who they've never sat with for longer than a day or two. Because now they're like, oh crap, I have nowhere to go, nothing to do. And this reminds me of the time I was feeling trapped. And I was out going, doing all the things because I could ignore and avoid all the things I was doing. I was great at work, but at home, my personal life, I don't know. Y'all, when I tell you, there needs to be
the clapping sound effect right
going
here.
in.
Hold on, let me find it.
Yay, do I get applause? That is why it's serious. That's why we have to understand the domino effect. Stop saying the stuff in the news does not matter to you and that it does not impact you, because it's calling up something you have been through. So be fair to yourself and call me or Jessica, or follow us on our pages. We're going to get into that later, but it's touching you for a reason. It's touching you for a reason. I'm actually writing a course on this very soon, but because I just want y'all to be better. Like, just be better. Call it what it is.
All the things that you just said. I mean, can you imagine someone who had been raped and didn't have the ability to say no, and then spent the next 2 to 6 weeks trying to figure out, am I pregnant? Could I have an STD? Could there be something wrong with me? I don't have anybody to tell. All of these things are connected. We are a community. We're a dysfunctional community, but when something happens to our neighbor who we never actually met, we worry about our safety in our neighborhoods. And so I think that when you've never had to worry about race, right? So a lot of white people will say, this is not about race. This is not racist. You've never had to worry about it. So you don't know what it looks like, but we know what the boogeyman looks like. We know what it feels like. It is seeing George Floyd, a grown-ass man, call for his mama. And then hearing your child in the background call you. And you pray that you never have to see him calling out for you on the news. It does look like me looking at my 3-year-old daughter, right? So I did a video and I said, what does she have to look forward to? And someone was like, well, she could be a respectable young woman. Absolutely, she could be. But then she could be a victim like her mother. Because unfortunately, those things, I don't know why, but if you've been a victim of rape, your children are 5 times more likely to be a victim, right? So what if my respectable young daughter has someone steal her virtue? And then I have to look her in the eye and say, well, you're going to have to carry your rapist baby. I would not say it in that way.
Right.
But both be devastated. I got herbs for that. We'll figure it out. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it does impact us. So
it is.
All in all, please.
Oh, go ahead, Jess.
No. I was just going to say, all in all, please do not be so disconnected that you can't have empathy for your fellow man or woman. Right.
Period.
And
that is
empathy is just trying to see it from their lens.
That's all I ask. Whenever I have, even if somebody comes to a session and I even present the fact, girl, let me dig into your daddy issues. Let's figure this out, right? Girl, just have an open mind. Oh, my daddy was great. What do you mean? And then a couple sessions in, you mad at me. You're like, girl, I didn't think about how I was trying to be a people pleaser because I just wanted my daddy to be proud of me. You know, these things, just have an open mind, because that could be the key to open it up. And I think especially when it comes down to race, like Jessica was saying, there are white people, if I'm just talking about white and black people, I've had conversations with white people who are just like appalled at some of the things that I may have experienced, the way that I may conceptualize something, or AKA just in complete denial. Like, I think I was on one podcast and I explained what code switching was, and these 2 white men didn't know. They were like, what's that? I think that the conversation started because I was talking about how I support and attract mostly black women and women. That's just who comes to me. And I was talking about how I want to make it a safe space for black women to be able to, talk, chop it up, whatever. And they were like, well, what's the difference between what, a white woman and a black woman will have to go through? And they were really like curious. But then, of course, because I am a brown girl, I also have my defenses up, like, you're going to try to play me like I ain't got nothing to defend myself against. But I just calmly explained code switching. And they were just like, oh, it's so what I wear my fro now, and y'all can't see me, but when I was interviewing before, I would straighten my hair because you don't know who the panel's going to be. That's called code switching. I have to be one place and be in one area and act a certain way, or do a certain thing, or speak a certain way, because I'm so afraid that I am not enough. A message that I have been carrying forever, because of childhood things, and that we all are carrying. So we can't say that things in the past don't matter. For people who are like, therapy, what is that? What does it matter? You just need to let it go and get over it. That's also a narrative that has been planted by society that says, oh, you can just get over it. Just do this and you'll be fine. Get over it, right? It's just, there are so many soapboxes that, of course, I could get off on.
I think
I'll just leave it there.
We all could. It's funny you mentioned code switching. I vividly remember one of my 8th grade teachers. She told us about it. She was a black woman, and she was like, especially you young men. And she told us about code switching, yo. And it's something I took with me and I use. But as I got older, I realized what she was trying to say and what she was trying to do because of what was going on at the times. But times have shifted and have changed for the better. And people are definitely embracing more of you legitimately being yourself. Like, I'm way more professionally relaxed at work, and just being more of my true quote unquote self. And that's just so funny that how just somebody can make such one statement like that, and it just drives years and years and years of your life, and you're literally conducting your behavior based off of what someone said versus, hey, I'm the one out here living and experiencing this. Let me try something different. Let me try something new. It is super crazy. But ladies, I don't want to keep y'all too much longer. We could do this all day. I have to have y'all back soon. I got nothing else. Personally, I have nothing else. Anything else y'all want to add or contribute to the conversation?
I was just thinking about the Captain America song. I can do this all day. Did y'all not watch it? The Marvel series? Okay, sorry. Well, y'all, I've been Christian Jackson, the Daddy Issues expert. You can find me at www.couchwithchristian.com. That is CHRISTIAN.com. Or you can find me at Couch with Christian, all one word, on Instagram and see what I got going on.
Yep, you should do that. I just want to say, guys, like, this is when I say guys, I mean everybody. He, she, they, all y'all. Okay,
All of
take
us.
care of yourself. All right, take care of yourself, and don't let the man get you down. And by the man, I mean the damn government. Okay, so I'm Jessica Vann. I am helping moms to find the sexy and the messy of parenting. I have a Mamas and Mimosas Bitch and Sip coming up on July 24th here in Columbia, South Carolina. So I'm looking at Rob's face, and let me tell you about the Bitch and Sip, y'all.
Yes,
It is really
explain.
about saying the unpopular thing and getting out those negative feelings about parenting so we can make room for the good, because there's so much good about parenting. And when I say the negative things about parenting, y'all remember the first time y'all heard "fuck them kids"? Y'all clutch y'all pearls. I did too. Okay, but now I be feeling that shit. Okay, and so luckily I have a tribe of moms that I can share those sentiments with, but a lot of moms don't. And so my goal is to create community where moms can come in and say, you know what, my 3-year-old drew on the wall and I wanted to punt them. And that's okay, as long as we don't punt our children, right? So check me out. You can find me at Envision More. That's INvisionMore.com, or Envision Counseling on Instagram. Y'all, Rob was cracking up laughing, but I mean that shit. He ain't got no kids, okay? I know y'all be
Don't
wanting to punch
understand.
them.
You don't get
Just
it.
don't punch your baby, okay?
I understand a
talk.
little bit.
Let's talk before you punt the baby.
As
Yeah,
Okay?
you get to send them kids back home.
I
Oh
do,
my God.
but the line there's almost. I got stories for y'all. I'll tell y'all off air.
I know.
But
Well, I do want to say on that note, Rob, I have to say I appreciate you as an educator, especially as a Black male
Absolutely.
educator. That is.
I'm about to quit. Don't
Um,
thank me. I'm out of here. No, I'm kidding.
Don't do that.
No, I appreciate
I'm
that.
sure you know the impact that you make for those kids who go home and they don't have a
Yeah.
positive male Black influence.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
right.
To that, I will say, stop trying to ruin my career. I got a funny story I'm gonna tell y'all when we get off air. Yeah, kids, we love y'all. We love y'all, and we do this not only for ourselves but for y'all. And if you're listening to this podcast, it is not Mr. Wilson. All right, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, take care of yourselves physically, mentally, financially, and we'll catch y'all next time. Peace. Oh, all the links for Christian stuff will be in the description, and all the links for Jessica stuff will be in the description. Click on it. Even if it isn't for you, I'm pretty sure you know somebody that could use their services and that needs their help. So check it out. All right, we're going for real this time. Peace.